Building reports in Ignition that contain SPC data is pretty straightforward. We're not going to go into all the details of how to use the reporting engine, just enough to show how to get the SPC data in there and display it. There's plenty of other resources of how to use the Ignition reporting. We're going to start out by creating a new window. And we'll go to SPC tab and we'll drop an SPC controller on our window. Also, we'll go to the calendar tab and we'll put a calendar selector here. A few options we don't want. We don't want to select the time for this demo. We're just going to select a day and display the data for the day. And I'm not going to use the OK button. So whatever date we click on, it will use that. And we want it to be the start of the day. So it would be midnight of that day. Now I'll go up to the SPC controller and hit start date. So we want to start whatever day we click on here. So we'll just bind to the immediate date. The latched is used with the OK button, but whatever one we click on the calendar, we want it to use that immediately. And then the end date, a little bit different because we can't have the start date and end date the same. So we're going to take an expression, we're going to use that date, and then we're going to add a day to it. So to do that, date arithmetic, which takes a date, number, and a field. And the date we're going to get from our calendar, the immediate. And then we're going to add 1 to that, 1 day to that. So the day we clicked on the calendar all the way up to the next day. That's the date range that it will get for the data. Next, we'll go back to our SPC controller, and we want to automatically update the data when we change the date. And we had an SQL tag pressure, which was a value that was automatically collected. And it puts our settings in there. We could also just leave this blank and manually type in these values, but this is a quick way of doing it. Now we will go to our reporting tab and put a report object on the screen. If we go down to the data property on that, that's the data we're going to pass into the report. And we're going to bind that to our SPC controller SPC data. Now before, when we've done control charts, we've bound to SPC results. That contains a lot of other information in it, and it's not usable in the reports. So SPC data is a data set and is usable in the reports. Then we'll go into our report designer. And if we go over to keys here, we see our data and we see our actual SPC data in that data. Now we could define multiple items in their user properties. So data is there by default, but you can create other ones and they can get quite elaborate. But like I said, there's other resources on the reporting that talk how to do that. I'm going to go up here and put in a line graph. I'm just going to change a few things on this graph. I'm not going to have a border around it, and I'm not going to fill. Now to display the actual data in the graph. If I take this data item and put it down here to the dataset key, that tells us that this graph is going to use that SPC data item property for the report. Then I have some other key values that I'm going to put in here. The first one is the date time. So that's going to be the x-axis. So the first one ends up being that by default. And then I'm going to take my X bar. So that's my main data in the graph. But I also want to display my individual lower control limit and my individual upper control limit and my X double bar as well. Some other things I want to do, I just want to make sure that I'm sorting by the correct item. And we obviously want to sort by date time across. I have to put that in manually. And it's in ascending order there, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. Other minor things that I can do is change the colors. So we'll just select blue there and maybe an orange here. And I think our next series was the X double bar, so we'll probably want that to be green. All right, so that should display our information in our control chart. And there we go. This is not a licensed version of the reporting module, but we do have our upper control limit, our data value, our X bar, double bar, all showing in the report here with the legends. So now you would be able to, in run mode, be able to print that out or get a PDF or have a multi-page report from this data, do various things like that. And then we can test our calendar as well. So if I click on a different day, the data in our chart updated. So the calendar sets the range of date for the SPC controller, and it will go out and get the data. And then that feeds into the report. So anytime that data changes, the report updates. So that's how we get SPC data into Ignition reports.